Hello guys, it's Ryan Ho back with another video. Today I want to talk about the Meze Rai Penta. Now this is $1,100. This is the most expensive thing I've ever reviewed on my channel, at least for IEMs. And yeah, it has Penta, which is basically 5 drivers, so it has 4 BA drivers and a dynamic driver. It's always nice to see a dynamic driver inside of an IEM. That just guarantees that it's going to have decent or good bass, and it definitely has that. And the other thing is the shape and the fit of this. This is actually smaller than a lot of IEMs, meaning that it really fits really comfortable in your ear. And that's the thing that I haven't really kind of had with other IEMs. I feel like this one really is really small and it fits really nice. I feel like when you get into like really audiophile IEMs, they just get bigger and chunkier in your ear, versus this one just has a really nice fit. And I think that's can't be underrated about this IEM. And of course, it's kind of a premium product at its price point, but it comes with nice cable and kind of packaging that you'll see. Anyways, I would like to thank, I guess, iFi. I did the iFi GoPod review. That's why I had the Meze Rai Penta, and I decided to review anyways while I had it here. So thanks to them anyways. And yeah, anyways, let's get into nitty gritty detail. All right, so let's take a close look at the IEM. So this is the Rai Penta. It has a CNC shell made of aluminum. It's all kind of one plate, which is really nice, very fancy. Honestly, I really like the way the shell is designed. It feels really premium, honestly. And like I said, I really like the shape of this in my ear. It's very comfortable. I really have no qualms about that at all. So the shell, very nice looking, very kind of, low key. It's really just a Meze logo on there. And then the tips we'll go over, but they're just kind of these standard kind of silicone tips. And then we have this cable over here. So this cable is a silver plated cable, so fancier than your standard copper cable. I'm not going to go in details about, cable sounding better because people start raging out there. But you know that you get a nice cable that comes with this. Now, we can take a look at the accessories. So the accessories, we have this nice kind of leather bag. I mean, it's Meze at this price point. I wouldn't be surprised if it was actual leather. And then, of course, we have a variety of tips that are included, including these kind of foam tips as well over here. So a lot of choices for your different type of ears. Now, I just use the standard silicone ones, as I said, to do my evaluation. Now, inside this case, you can see it has, the bottom and the top, which have pouches, and it comes with kind of a 1/4-inch adapter, as well as the airplane adapter, which is not something you see very often. So another thing I want to show you about the shape of the Meze. So this is the Moondrop Variations right here. It's like $550, I think. And you can see this is the size difference. Like, this thing is chunkier and thicker. I mean, even looking at this, the footprint of this is like almost like, I would say 30% bigger at the very least. Like, it is a much heavier and much more substantial thing in your ear. So you can see the kind of differences in the shape. All right, so let's talk about the sound of the Meze Rai Penta. So the Meze Rai Penta, I would say it's a warm, kind of smooth type of sound. So it's definitely not too treble intensive. There's definitely a lot of bass boost. And then the mid-range is, I think, the highlight of the show. So the mid-range seems to be kind of pushed forward and to be the main focus of the music. Now, I do think the bass is very warm sounding, which is not bad. However, there's some aspects of the bass that don't really come through as much. So those being basically dynamics or physicality. So imagine just hearing the bass and feeling the bass is different. I feel like the kind of Meze doesn't really kind of shake your ear. You don't feel it as much, and that's one of the aspects that I feel like makes, sound more realistic. And I feel like, it could definitely improve in that aspect. However, the bass is still clean, and, the sub bass is also the area that I do think it could use a little bit more exaggeration down there, but overall it does a pretty decent job at making the bass sound clean and clear at the very least. So I don't really have too much problem. It sounds like I'm really, bagging on a lot, but honestly the bass is a lot better than most IEMs. But when you compare it next to something like the Variations, then that's where you can really see its, lack of, I guess, bass or as much quantity and shake as the Variations, right? If you like vocals, you like your instruments, it really focuses it. If you like very like acoustic music, I feel like it leans itself really heavily to that. And so for me, I really think that's where it shines most is the mid-range. And the thing where, even compared to other things like the Moondrop variations, I don't think the variations mid-range can compare to the Meze. And there was a song that I was listening to. So I actually just went to the Taylor Swift show in LA and she played the song August. And if you listen to that song, it just really does it really well on this IEM. And that's when it kind of clicked when I listened to this. Like listening to that one song really just like made me love this thing so much. And it just sounds really realistic in my opinion. Anyways, when it comes to the treble, that's the part where like, I went back and forth a lot thinking about like, is the treble, is what I would define as neutral? At some points, I would say like, oh, I could use maybe like a sliver, like a small, little bit more treble. So I wouldn't say it's dark, but I would say it's like neutral to like slightly below neutral. But the treble is really nice and very comfortable to listen to. And I think I really do enjoy that aspect. And that's a part of it where I'm just like, I think a lot of people will enjoy this unless you're a person who's really into, well, things like the variation, which is very kind of V-shaped. So, it has a lot more bass and like deep lows and a little bit more treble emphasis, which gives it kind of a more exciting kind of V-shaped sound that the variation has versus the Meze has a little bit more of a mid-range focus type of sound. So depending on the type of person, you might gravitate towards one or the other because, when it comes to things like EDM or something, I would definitely listen to that on the variation versus, like I said, more acoustic type of sound music on the Meze. So the last thing I want to talk about is, of course, soundstage and imaging, right? So those are two things that, I always have to, play games to figure out imaging and then do some comparisons to other, IEMs that I have, like the variations again. And what I found was simply that the imaging of this is simply good enough. It's not like, oh, wall hacks, I can hear everything in the right direction. It's not terrible, but, the imaging is fine. It's decent. The soundstage, on the other hand, is, I would say it is only okay. The soundstage does not sound big or wide, and the separation of like the sounds is not good, at least in comparison to the variations. I think the variations really kind of shows you what soundstage and imaging really is. It sounds very big and tall and around you, and things sound really separated. Like when I hear other instruments and instruments like being layered on top of each other, they sound like they're almost played from like a different point in space versus the Meze kind of all sounds like it's coming from the same place. And so I would say in those type of aspects, I don't think the Meze is its strong point. But, my theory about this is simply the size. I think the size of the Meze is smaller, so it has better comfort, but it can't excel in those other properties, especially when it has a smaller dynamic driver as well. So it can give you that like visceral, like I guess dynamic, or what do you ever call it, physical punch, where you can feel it, versus something like the variations can really do that. So my conclusion really is, if you want something that's hyper comfortable, like I said, this is the most comfortable thing I've had in my ear. This is definitely worth it. The sound quality of this is really good. I really like the tuning. It's just such a safe sound, but it's just a nice sound that I think everybody can enjoy. I'm not a guy who likes, things that have way too much treble that people say like it's a lot of detail and it's kind of annoying. This doesn't have any of those characteristics. It's a nice, smooth, warm sound, which I think is very enjoyable. And of course, it has a really nice kind of look and shell and everything as well. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe down below. Helps my videos out. My next video is probably going to be this, the Moondrop Stellaris. It's a planar IEM, so that's going to be pretty cool to review. I think it's like $110, but yeah, be on the lookout for that. Anyways, I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.